What kind of people choose to sail into a world almost guaranteed to kill them? On Dark Origins, we don't tell you what to believe. We explore how survival shaped humanity and ask what it's still shaping today. Not for glory, not for conquest. They did not leave seeking songs to be sung about them, or banners to be raised in their names. They left because staying meant slowly fading, into hunger, into silence, into lives that would never be remembered. Before oceans had names, before maps could be trusted, before anyone could say what waited beyond the horizon, they stepped onto fragile wood and let their past loosen its grip. Not in a single moment, but in small, irreversible pieces. A final look at the shoreline, the smell of familiar soil, the shape of hills they would never see again. There were no rescue plans, no routes drawn in ink, no certainty that the next sunrise would come. Only wind, only water, only the quiet understanding that survival was no longer a place. It was a decision, and once that decision was made, there was no turning back. Only forward, into the unknown, into the cold, into whatever remained of them. On the other side of the sea, they did not leave because they wanted adventure. They left because the land could no longer hold them. The soil was thin, scraped raw by wind and frost. Winters stretched on without mercy. Summers arrived late and left early, barely long enough to promise life, never long enough to secure it. One failed harvest could erase a family, two could erase a village, and sometimes even success was only temporary. A single good year standing between survival and disappearance. If you were born without land, your future had already been written for you. Not in ink, but in hunger. You would serve someone else's fields. You would count meals instead of years. You would learn how to make little feel like enough. And if you refused that life, there was only one remaining choice. Not courage, not ambition, departure. Not towards something promised, but away from something that had already decided. You were expendable. The shoreline is quiet, not peaceful tense. The kind of quiet that tightens the chest. The kind that listens back. Men lean into the longship, pushing it over rough wooden rollers. Their hands are split and swollen. Rope has burned grooves into their skin, dark lines that will never fully fade. Pitch stains their fingers black, seeping into the cracks of their nails like ink. No one jokes, no one sings, no one looks up. This is not ceremony. This is not pride. This is labor. Every movement must match the next. Every breath must fall into rhythm. If one man slips, the weight shifts. If the weight shifts, bones break. If bones break, the journey shortens. They do not speak these rules. They live them. The ship does not care who you are. It only knows gravity, and gravity never forgives. Their ship was thin, flexible, and exposed. Not fragile, honest. No cabin. No walls to hide behind. No shelter from wind, rain, or the long bite of cold. Only open wood. Open sky. Open water. It did not challenge the sea. It listened to it. When waves rose, the hull bent. When storms struck, it yielded. Not out of weakness, but out of understanding. Because the ocean does not negotiate. It does not care how brave you are. It only respects those who know when not to resist. Rigid ships snap. Stiff men drown. Flexing keeps you alive. This vessel was not meant to feel safe. Safety is a luxury of the shore. Out here, there is only function. Only balance. Only survival. Every plank, every curve, every rope was a quiet admission of truth. The sea will always be stronger, and the only way to cross it is to stop pretending otherwise. When the hull touches water, nothing feels heroic. It feels final. Wood meets the sea, and suddenly every sound grows louder. The creak of the planks, the pull of the ropes, the breath inside their chests, Some men smile, not from joy, but from release. Some close their eyes, as if storing the shape of the shore behind their lids, the last safe outline they may ever know. Some whisper names, not of gods, not of legends, but of mothers, of children, of hands they will never touch again. No one cheers. No one raises a fist. This is not victory. This is departure. They breathe slowly now, carefully, as if each breath must be counted, because breath is no longer automatic. It is permission, and once the ship floats free, everything they were stays behind with the land. There was no fire on these ships, no smoke rising into the wind, no warm bowls passed from hand to hand, no place to lie down and pretend the world was gentle. They ate their food cold, because fire was danger, because a single spark could erase everything. They slept sitting up, backs against wood, shoulders pressed together, sharing heat like a resource. Not out of brotherhood, out of necessity, body against body, breath against breath, life borrowing from life. This was not romantic. It was efficient. Comfort makes you careless. Carelessness makes you slow. And in the open sea, slow is not inconvenient. Slow is fatal. So they chose hunger over warmth, stiff joints over soft beds, cold over weight, because comfort is heavy, and heavy things sink. And the ocean always collects what cannot move fast enough. They did not survive through strength. They survived through systems. Everything was measured, rotated, watched. Who rode first? Who rested next? Who ate? Who drank? Who hadn't? Nothing was left to chance, because chance favors the sea. If someone grew quiet, they noticed. If someone stared too long into the dark, they stepped in. If someone stopped eating, they did not ask questions. They made him chew. They made him swallow. Not out of kindness, out of necessity. Because on open water, weakness spreads. Fear spreads. Hunger spreads. One man slowing down means another must pull harder. One man collapsing means fewer hands on the oars. And fewer hands means the ocean wins. So they watched each other constantly. Not like brothers, but like engineers guarding a fragile machine. Because the ship was not just wood and rope. It was them. And if one part failed, everything failed. They did not fight storms. They aligned with them. When the wind rose, they did not curse it. They adjusted. Hands moved to the ropes. Sails were reefed. Weight was shifted, inch by inch, until the ship breathed again. They let her rise. Let her fall. Let her bend. Because resisting the ocean was not bravery. It was suicide. Wood that refuses to flex will snap. Bone that refuses to yield will break. And men were no different. They did not shout at the waves. They did not challenge the sky. They listened. They learned the language of water. The warning in its rhythm. The threat in its silence. The mercy in its pauses. Survival was not dominance. It was adjustment. Correction. Endurance. It was knowing when to hold and when to let go. Because in a world that cannot be controlled, the only thing that can save you is the ability to change. We remember Vikings as warriors, men of axes, men of fire, men who took what they wanted. But warriors do not survive oceans. Systems do. Storms do not care how brave you are. Waves do not respect courage. Cold does not pause for honor. The sea only answers to preparation. They were not reckless. They were exact. They measured weight, counted mouths, tracked strength, anticipated failure before it arrived. They did not worship chaos. They built against it. Their ships were not symbols of power. They were solutions. Their routines were not traditions. They were safeguards. Their discipline was not harshness. It was insurance. Because out there, beyond sight of land. Mistakes do not teach lessons. They kill. So they engineered their lives, the way others forged weapons, with intention, with repetition, with no room for illusion. And that is why they lived. Not because they were fearless, but because they were ready. So what kind of people choose to sail into a world that wants them dead? Not monsters. Not legends. Humans. Men and women who understood something most civilizations never do. That survival is not about overpowering reality. It is not about bending nature to your will. It is not about shouting louder than the storm. It is about listening, about noticing patterns, about reading warnings, about knowing when to push and when to yield. They did not see the world as an enemy. They saw it as a system that could be learned, anticipated, respected. They did not try to conquer it. They aligned with it. And that difference, that single shift in thinking, decided everything. Who would vanish into the dark, and who would remain, quietly, patiently, long after others were forgotten. Because history does not remember the loudest. It remembers the ones who endured. On Dark Origins, we don't tell you what to believe. We explore how survival shaped humanity and ask what it's still shaping today.